Hey guys, welcome to the pre-match show for Leeds versus Liverpool. In this video, we're going to be talking about the recent FIFA ban that, well, I guess nearly happened. We'll also be talking about my starting 11 predictions, as well as a couple of things to look forward to, at least so I think, in tomorrow's game. Stay tuned to the end where I'm going to be giving you my prediction for tomorrow's game. Welcome back to Everacious Reds. My name is Tarek and thanks for tuning in. If you haven't already liked this video or subscribed to my channel, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. So before we talk about Liverpool versus Leeds, I think it's important to talk about the ban that nearly happened for Fabinho, Firmino, and Alisson. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, essentially all three players play for Brazil, their national team, and they were supposed to play in World Cup qualifiers over the last international break. However, Liverpool didn't let them go. Brazil is actually red listed according to the UK government. So what does that even mean? What that means is that if the players traveled to Brazil, they could play in their World Cup qualifiers. However, the problem is that when the players come back to England, they would have to quarantine for 10 days. So this means that all three players would miss tomorrow's game against Leeds, as well as the game midweek against AC Milan. And so obviously Liverpool had no control over the situation because, well, I mean, we're in a pandemic, so they have every right to refuse these players from playing in a country that is red listed. So there was a bit of a situation, shall we say, because obviously the players want to play and the clubs want to let them play, but the clubs don't want to let them go if they're going to have to quarantine and miss games. And so the Premier League was unanimous in saying that they wouldn't let their players go. The problem with this was that the respective FAs, so like Brazil, Chile, Mexico, essentially wanted to invoke a clause, or at least get FIFA to invoke a clause that would say that they had the right to suspend any player who refused to go and play for their national team, at least for 5 days, if I'm not mistaken. So you can see the dilemma. If Liverpool lets these players play for their respective national teams, then they have to quarantine. So there's no exemption, right? So you lose on one hand, and now Brazil wants to invoke a clause saying that, okay, they didn't have to go play for their team and they had the right to refuse, but we're going to essentially screw you anyway. So essentially what happened is in the last day and a half, progressive talks have taken place between the UK government and the respective FAs. And I think because of that, at least that's what they've said in their statement, that essentially they will allow all these players to play for the respective clubs. So thank God, because Fabinho and Alisson will be available, although Firmino will not be because of his hamstring. So getting to the starting 11 prediction. What do I think is going to be the starting 11 for tomorrow? Now, I think because of this whole situation with the Brazilian FA, I'm not sure if Fabinho is going to start. I'm not sure if he even trained, to be honest with you. So that's a big question mark for me. And so I think based on him not being able to train properly, which I assume is the case, I think Liverpool is going to have a slightly different starting 11 to the one that faced Chelsea. So first, I think Alisson is going to be in net as always. I know he's also Brazilian, but keepers don't have to train as rigorously as players, especially to be match fit. So I do think Alisson is going to start. On the left side of defense will be Robbo. I think Virgil will start alongside him. That's a no-brainer, and thankfully also he is okay. So if you don't know, he had an injury scare in the international window as well, but he said he's fine, so I think we're good to go. On the right-hand side of that center-back pairing will be Joel Matip, and then on right defense will be Trent Alexander-Arnold. So that will be something I'm looking forward to seeing, as I think he will have a big influence on this game. In midfield, because I don't think Fabinho is going to play, I do think it is going to be Henderson that is going to take that DM role. And I know Elliott has started the last 2 games, and I think he's been pretty good, but I do think this is the game where Thiago is going to play. So I do think Thiago will start on the right, and I do think that Naby Keita will start in the left in that Gini Wijnaldum role. Up front, I think on the left we're going to have Sadio Mane. In the middle, we're going to have Jota because Firmino is injured. And the right, we're going to have none other than Mo Salah. So in tomorrow's game, I do think there are 3 things that I am personally looking forward to seeing. So the first thing is the influence that Trent is going to have. Because Leeds play a very fast-paced game, I think the game will be quite open. So I do think it'll be really important that Trent is defensively resolute, as I do think that Leeds has a lot of speed to play with. So he will have to be defensively sound, but that will also give him a chance to really push up and get involved offensively. And so I do think Trent will overlap more with Salah. So I do think he'll be involved on that front, and I think he will be the primary player distributing the long balls. And so I do think that Trent is going to be someone to look out for. The second player that I think will be really interesting to watch will be Sadio Mane. Now, Mane hasn't really been too impressive so far this season, and I do think because of this fast-paced game, I do think it is going to be something that suits him. Now, not necessarily going to say that he's going to score, but I do think he will be heavily involved. And I do think that if Liverpool are going to get something out of this game, he is going to have to turn up more than he has this season. The last player I think really needs to shine in this game is Mo Salah. Now, I know I said in the last game versus Chelsea that, we needed him to have a worldie, and, well, he didn't. I do think that because this game is so open, kind of like Mane, I think Salah will have to be very clinical. I think the longer this game goes on, obviously the more Leeds is going to grow into this game. I think the first 20 minutes are really going to be difficult for Liverpool to deal with because of the fact that we are playing away, and this is the first time that Leeds is hosting Liverpool in the Premier League era, obviously because COVID of last year and no fans. So I do think that if Liverpool are clinical, especially Mane and especially Salah, I do think that that will change the game. If Liverpool can get a couple of goals to start, I do think that that will shut the game down. So I think that leads to my final piece, which is the prediction for tomorrow's game. Now, I think Liverpool will actually come out on top, but as I alluded to previously, I do think the first 20 minutes are going to be difficult. I expect a nerve-wracking first 20 minutes because I do think that even though Leeds are not a newly promoted side, having fans back after COVID and this being the first time that they're hosting Liverpool, I do think it will be like a promoted side atmosphere. The crowd are going to be wild. So I do think it is going to be tough for Liverpool to deal with this, especially as they don't have Fabinho playing, which I'm assuming, like I said. So I think Liverpool will likely be a little jittery, but I do think that if they survive the first 20 minutes, I think they can win this game. And I do think they will win by a score of 2-0. I do think Liverpool will actually maintain a clean sheet. I think they've been pretty good defensively, and I expect to see more of that tomorrow. And I do think, in my opinion, the goals will come from Mane and Salah. And don't be surprised if you see a Trent assist. So guys, thanks for tuning in. What I would say is please leave your comments below in terms of who you think the starting 11 is going to be, what your prediction for tomorrow's game is going to be, and if you disagree with me, right? I mean, I want to hear what you guys have to say, and then we can chat about it. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you guys soon.